Hi, welcome to the Poultry Keepers Podcast. I'm Rip Stalvey, and together with Mandolin Royal and John Gunnerman, we're your co-hosts for this show, and it's our mission to help you have a happy, healthy, and productive flock. Good evening, Poultry Keepers, and thank you for joining us for another Poultry Keepers 360 Live. We have a really good show for you, and coming up in just a few seconds, we are going to get Jeff to talk to us about the molt. We've covered it before, but we've got a lot of questions, and we've learned a few things since then. So you stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, and you can see we got a new face with us tonight. We have Carey Blackmon. He's our newest Poultry Keepers 360 team member. And Carey, it's nice to have you here tonight. Glad you could join us.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here.
Take just a couple of minutes and tell the folks a little bit about you who may not know you.
Oh, Lord. So my name is Carey Blackmon. I live in central Alabama. I raise large fowl single comb Rhode Island Reds. Pretty fond of them. And I also raise Coturnix quail. I have Pharaoh and a few other lines of those. I've been in poultry probably the better part on and off the last 30 years. And a little over a year ago, I started diving deep into the genetics side of it and the nutrition side of it, which is part of how I met these two guys here. And it's exciting. It's been a journey. I've learned a whole lot, and I look forward to learning a whole lot more.
Very cool. Like I said, we're so happy to have you with us. And tonight, Jeff's going to get into the molt. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You guys are going to help, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're not just going to be there. All right. Again, it's that time of year, and we decided it was time to talk about the molt again. We only talk about it pretty much one time out of the year, and people forget, what did we talk about last year? So, look, for those of you who have communicated with me directly that I am a short and maybe not sweet kind of individual, look, the molt, they're going to lose their feathers, right? That's what everybody thinks about first. What they don't understand is that the body temperature of the bird actually is going to slightly increase and be above normal. So it's going to be running a mild fever. The molt is actually driven by hormonal changes in the bird based on the season or time of life, right? So think of it this way. Your bird feels like crap. It's uncomfortable, it's lethargic, it's droopy. It's like you have the flu symptoms. If you've ever had the flu, you know exactly what we're talking about, right? It's body ache, a little bit of fever. You're not really going to the bathroom the right way. You're not eating right. So very similar to that.
So many people think it's just about regrowing feathers. They don't really realize there's so much more to it. And that's the key thing to remember. It's more than just regrowing feathers.
It's a complete recycling. This is a complete recycling. Things you want to consider when you want to help your birds through the molt. And right now we're coming into the middle of the summer, right? And for most of it, it's hot. The sun's up in the sky for a longer period of time to make sure they've got really good shade space and shade in a way that they're not too close to another bird, right? So you've got really good airflow. Look at ways to be able to supply cooler water, right? Not water that sits in a reservoir, gets up to 100 degrees, picking and choosing what your water supply is going to be or how you're going to serve that water can make a huge difference. Look at ways to alter the feed. We need to lower the energy and we want to lower the protein. Both energy and protein will cause that body temperature to go up during digestion. And we want to try not to push that body temperature any more than it already is. Basically, we're looking for cooler feeds that are less stress on the digestive tract and the metabolism. And the biggest thing, and dealing across a broad spectrum of poultry keepers, not just breeders, some performance fowl, some exhibition, even in the commercial, on the commercial side, small commercial side, really the most important thing is patience, right? Patience, because as soon as birds start dropping feathers, I see all of these chicken owners out there. Oh, we got to up the protein. Oh, we got to do this. Oh, they're It's what I call a knee-jerk reaction, and they're going the completely wrong direction. So it's a recycling, it's a process, and we need to understand it and what's going on inside that bird to help the bird through that process.
Here, Stacy commented, says, everyone says to use more protein to help with feather growth.
You know what? Once all the feathers are gone, and once all the internal fat is gone, and once the bird's gone through the recycling process, having really good, high quality protein feed coming out of the molt is going to give us the best feather growth. But it's timing. Don't start your additional protein at the beginning of the molt. You want that high quality feed and that better protein coming out of the molt, right? So once the feathers drop and you start seeing those feather follicles forming and developing, that the new feathers are coming, that's when that better protein, I don't want to say high protein. It doesn't have to be high protein. Tonight I wore my amino acid shirt for a reason. It's more, people need to understand, it's more about the amino acids than it is the protein. And we've talked about it, I don't know how many times on the show in the last 2 years, Rip, but I feel like I'm beating a dead horse.
I agree.
Yeah, it's quality, not quantity. Let's talk about the water a little bit, and just simple thinking guidance here, right? And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Until I die, you will hear me use this phrase. If you're not willing to drink it, it's not good enough for your animal. That's any animal. And tonight we're talking about chicken. You take a cup or a glass with you to the barn, try a little bit of that chicken water, right? Is it good enough for you? Ain't none of us, including me, that's willing to drink that chicken water at the end of the day when I change it out. But I'm never going to leave that water for the second day or the third day.
No.
And having large reservoirs of water because I'm lazy and I only have to fill it once a week, right? That is not happening.
When you let that water just stay in the water day after day, you're just asking for trouble, folks. You really are.
Yeah. Bacteria is growing, algae is growing. There's a little bit of feed residue. I don't care whether you're using pellets, crumbles, mash, whatever. There's a little bit of residue on the bird's beak. Even if she was out on the ground digging around for bugs, there's going to be some residue in the beak. The water is going to be contaminated, right? At least every 24 hours is a minimum to refresh that water. And right now when it's hot, the more often that you can replace it or refresh it or whatever, the better off we're going to be.
I was just going to say, you sent me a video one time of, Pastured Life, the turkey waters they had created.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the most neat setup for attracting birds to water and encouraging drink more water at the times when they need it. And folks, I'll go back through the files and see if I can dig that up, and I'll post that up tomorrow to get it at the top of the list.
Yeah, remind me, if you can't find it, I'll dig for it also. But basically they were using what we call spaghetti tubing, which is the black 1/4 inch rubber tubing that you can get just about anywhere. And you can use 1/8 inch. It doesn't really matter. And you dial the pressure down so it's just dribbling and dripping into a reservoir, but it attracts the birds to drink, but it also keeps the water fresh coming through the line because it's constantly dripping and recycling. Yeah, that was one of the greatest ideas I ever saw. The other one was Carol Wilson down in Texas. She got some smaller 16-quart coolers and she drilled out the drain on them and she plumbed them so there was a hose going to the drinker, and she can freeze large blocks of ice, put in the cooler with the water. It was keeping the water colder all day long, and she's down in Central Texas, so it's an issue. Think about how you can set up a water reservoir with ice blocks. Be creative, think outside the box, talk to people, ask questions. There's got to be a plan for cooler and cleaner water, because the more water we get into your birds, the quicker they're going to get through the molt and the happier they're going to be.
So I'm a huge fan of bell waters. I really like them. And when the water comes out the side, even as it trickles down the side of the bell water, a lot of times those birds will go crazy pecking at it, trying to get it as it's falling. They don't care about what's in the bottom. They want that, because what I'll do is I've got a deep freeze in my barn, and I'll get me a couple of cases of water bottles, and I'll freeze those water bottles. And in the morning, I'll go out there and put them in my reservoirs to cool the water down. And then I'll go check all of my bell waters. I'll dump them over a couple times so it gets cool water in the lines to circulate it through. And that's the water that they get that day. I do the water in the morning and I feed them in the afternoons.
So what are you using? You think the pictures I'd seen from you, Carey, were 5-gallon buckets for your reservoir?
Yeah. So what I do, I use the 5-gallon pail. And what I'll do is I've got a float valve that hooks up probably 3/4 of the way towards the top, that a garden hose hooks to that end of it. And so there's 2.5, 3 gallons worth of water that stays in the pail. And then off about an inch off the bottom of the pail is where I hook up my 1/4-inch line. So if there's any trash gets in it, it'll fall to the bottom. And I've also got 3 3/4-inch copper elbows, just so I have some copper in there to keep the. Yep.
Are you liking that working for you?
Since I started using 3 of those fittings, because I found a place where I can order 10 packs pretty cheap. Since I use 3 in them, which is like a little over 1 per gallon, I have no issues with algae, no issues with anything. And I think it's a combination of the water going through there quick and not sitting in there, and it constantly pumping fresh water in, but also the copper fittings have really made a difference.
What Carol was using in Grimes Cadillac chickens, she was using, as I told her to get the 1-gallon like painter pails, right? You can go get a fairly inexpensive 1-gallon pail, any good hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, right? And freeze those, fill those with water, freeze them in the deep freeze. And in her heat or your heat or even Florida's heat, in a few minutes, they'll slip right out of that pail. So if you put a 1-gallon chunk, you've added to your water supply, and you actually have a larger chunk to last you longer in your 5-gallon bucket, if it'll fit. Just something to think about. Right.
I put about 4 of those water bottles in the pail. I carry around a couple 5-gallon pails around the yard, and I'll take the old ones out and put them in the empty bucket, and then put 3 or 4 frozen ones in there. And depending on how hot it is, sometimes they'll still have ice in them in the evening when I feed.
Right. But they're still in the plastic, right? Her thing was she was adding to water deliverable because she wasn't refilling. So she had a static water reservoir. So throughout the day, she was adding to her water total with that ice chunk.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because she didn't have a pressurized system with a float on it, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So depending on what people have, there's options out there, and there's people to definitely talk to. This is just an example of what I would put out there for a molt type feed. If somebody wants to mix it at home, it's mostly oats, mostly alfalfa. So it's a really high fiber, and the oats and the alfalfa will satiate the bird. So it'll fill the crop, fill the gizzard, and stay in the system for quite a while. So they don't feel as hungry, because you only want to feed 2 ounces. Okay, to an average bird that weighs 4 to 6 pounds, about 2 ounces of this mix. Okay, so this is like really low energy. Energy is way down. Protein is way down. If you look at this, is a calculated 12.5% protein. Pulled the fat out of it. Fiber's really high. All of this is intentional, but I'm keeping the amino acids up. I've got a little bit of fish meal in there just to help the birds out. Sunflower seeds don't have to be in there. Sunflower seeds are just more of a treat, so the birds know you still love them, but you're not trying to kill them, right? It makes them a little bit happy, even though they're being grumpy because they're not getting enough feed. And it adds to the fiber. It helps keep the fat level there. Again, just an example. Something can be devised where you live. It's really not that hard. I think people overthink it all the time. The key is high fiber, lower carbohydrate, lower protein. You only feed this for 2 weeks. Okay? In the last 2 weeks, people asking me about molt rations, and they just, I can't find that where I live. I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, folks, this is so easy. Even if you're feeding like an all flock or a flock raiser or something like that. So even if you want to go this easy, and I don't recommend it, but if you want to go this easy, it's 1 part all flock raiser, whatever you're feeding. So it's 1 pound of that, 3 pounds of oats. Still give them some extra supplement, like some breeder supplement or something, a little bit of oil to make it stick. Okay. You're only going to do this for 2 weeks. And it may not even be 2 weeks, but we want that full feather drop. We want to keep the tempered body temperature down. We don't want to feed things that are going to push higher body temperature, right? So we're trying to give them easier digesting, same thing, same formulation that I've put up here. Again, high fiber, low calories. Yeah, I'm going to do pretty much the exact same formulation that I have on screen right now. We can fine tune it to make it soy-free if we need to. Actually, this is soy-free the way it sits. Can make it happen. And it just, I don't want people to be afraid of it. And it's really, okay, it's easy for me to sit here and say it's not that complicated. It's easy. But again, I've been doing chicken rations for 28 years. So to me, it's easy. And it doesn't take long to make the adjustments.
Jeff, we've got another question here, or comment really. They say they have 5 chickens and they use one of those cat fountains. And I think I've heard you talk about that before.
I have one here. Yeah, I have a 1 gallon fountain that circulates, and my cats and my dog all use the same drinker. And I know that they are consuming way more water just because of the entertainment value. So they can hear it, that trickles. I watch them. So when they want a large volume, they drink out of the trough. And when they're playing, they come and drink out where the fountain dribbles down. It's 100% stainless steel. I take it apart once a week, put it in the dishwasher, scrub it up good, put it back together. I can hand wash it if I'm in a hurry. Mine comes with a charcoal filter. The pump's in the bottom. I think we're on year 3 or 4 of continuous use, and the pump's still going. I'm very well satisfied with it. I think chickens would have a blast with it.
No doubt.
Yeah. Rip, if you remind me in the morning, I'll get a link for it. And you can get it from chewy.com, or you can get it direct from I think it's a Pet Safe product. If you look at a water fountain, isn't it a Pet Safe?
Yeah, I've actually got one of them at my house, and it is the Pet Safe. What I did was I put it in my cart on Chewy the first time you told me that. And a few days went by, and they actually sent me a coupon. They knew what I was thinking. I don't know.
You played the game, right? You got the $10 off because you sat there and waited for a week. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. For a small number of birds, I really think the chickens would love it. I really do think that, not just chickens, any bird, just because of the running water. The initial purchase isn't cheap, but it's also, I don't remember, Carey. What'd you pay for it? Do you remember?
It was like $70 or $75.
But again, I'm 3 years in service, and it's held up well for me. Yeah. And Joy says her girls like it, and it has a yellow flower on top. All right. So getting back to molt feed again. So for a typical size, not a large fowl, for a large fowl, like if you're talking about a New Hamp, a Brahma, Orpington, or something like that, I'd probably go to 3 ounces, only 3 ounces, right? Roughly half of what their normal feed by weight. This is not a measurement. This is a weight. That's in my top 10 list of overall frustrations working with poultry keepers. They don't know what the feed weighs. They go through with a scoop, and everybody gets a scoop. What's a scoop weigh? How am I supposed to help you if I don't know how much feed they're getting, right? Oh, they get a scoop. Oh, what kind of scoop? I don't know. It's a Vienna sausage can. It's a potted meat can. It's a 1/3 cup. It's amazing the different things that people use to feed their birds with, and they have no idea what it weighs. No idea what it weighs, right? Anyway, half the normal feed, this is by weight, not measurement, going to be 14 to 21 days. Now, to do this correctly, and I'm glad this is being recorded so nobody comes back later and says, well, you told me, right? We need to monitor body weight to achieve desired weight. Desired weight on a proper molt is to take any older bird or mature bird back to very close to pullet or cockerel weight. Okay. And because if we can shrink the ovaries and if we can resize the testicles, you get more eggs, you get higher hatches, you get better chicks. Okay. If you let them go through life with 25% body fat, BMI, we're losing out, right? The bird will never achieve its full genetic potential carrying extra weight. Now, for folks who contact me directly on the easiest way for me, okay, this is for me to check body fat because I'm not good at pinching the abdomen. I feel the pelvic bones. If the pelvic bones are sharp and close together, then feel that the fat content is good, right? If they're very rounded and feel soft to the touch, then there's still a fair amount of fat in there. On most cow, the pelvic bones will hold fat, okay, around them, right? That's a typical area for body fat. That just works for me, all right? Whatever works for you, use it. I'm just saying it's easy for me to stick my fingers up a chicken's butt and feel whether or not it's fat or skinny, all right? Rip, I know you've done it, right?
I'm just chuckling in with you, not at you.
Yeah. How many times you did
Sometimes
a
you got to
pelvic
do it together.
exam? Yeah.
It works.
How many pelvic exams have you done, Rip?
I'd rather not say.
All right.
Laura said that Cat Drinker is $59.95 on Amazon and Chewy. So now you know, folks.
Buy me another one.
Yeah. That's a good deal. I'm really happy. Right. I started putting pennies in there to keep the biofilm and algae under control. I actually only need to clean it for my 3 cats and the dog about once every 3 weeks. And it's fairly simple. Take it apart. And I put the pump down in a large bowl, along with the filter. And I put a little bit of white vinegar and distilled water in there and let it soak while everything else is in the dishwasher just to keep that refreshed and sanitized. You can take it apart in 3 minutes, put it back together in about 3 minutes. So it is not rocket science. All right. Post-molt feed. Somebody talked about what that protein needs to be. I put this together for this purpose, but so here we've got the corn, we've got the soybean meal, we've got the wheat, the oats, very typical ration that you would see coming from me. All right. And I feel an 18 or 19% is fine. We got the fat back up to close to 6%. Crude fiber is always going to be 5 with me. Calcium, phosphorus, everything's pretty normal. But we did add the extra amino acids. Anyway, post-molt, higher vitamins. We're running the vitamin levels back up. And we've got the added lysine, added vitamins, which is the RC Gold. That's where I'm getting up to 7,000 instead of 36. Got a little bit of methionine, a little bit of threonine in there. If you don't want to do it individually, I try and break it down so people can do it individually. The breeder supplement will get you where you need to be at its normal level at 1 teaspoon per bird, 1 tablespoon per pound. That's a rounded tablespoon, 1 cup per 12.5 pounds.
Thank you for joining us this week. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they're released, and they're released every Tuesday. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we'd like to ask you to drop us an email at poultrykeeperspodcast@gmail.com and share your thoughts about the show. So thank you again for joining us for this episode of the Poultry Keepers Podcast. We'll see you next week.